with Continental Can, I went out of manufacturing into the sales department, and eventually ended up working in 2 or 3 different spots, moving the family. And then I became a regional sales manager for Continental Can, and stayed in that position and ended up here in Cincinnati in, let's see, that would be 1984. Continental sold the company to Sunoco Products of Hartsville, South Carolina, for $2.7 billion.
Wow.
And the division that I was a regional manager in was purchased by Sunoco Products, so I went to work for them for 2 years and stayed with them until they tried to move me into a couple spots that I didn't want to go, and then they suggested that I get retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And I took retirement from them then. So after that, I became a manufacturer's rep. And I handled 6 different companies of packaging items, and did that for 12 years until I was 82 years old. And now I'm sitting back and not doing too much except talking with you.
That's awesome. Now, you told me you met your wife, Ann.
I met my wife in Winter Garden, Florida. I was the production manager there, and she became our greeter, or what do they call them?
Secretary, kind of.
Well, not a secretary, but sort of the first person you see when you go in an office.
Receptionist.
Receptionist. I couldn't think of the term.
Okay.
Yeah. So after going with her for almost a year, we decided to get married, and we did in July 16th, 1954.
Wow, so I'm not very good with math, so how many years is that for you?
Until she passed away?
Yes.
That was 58 years.
Wow, wow. So what can you tell me, a kid?
We had 3 children,
Okay.
2 daughters and a son. My son lives in Mason, and I have 1 daughter in Lake Forest, Illinois, that has 3 grandchildren, and the other daughter lives in Fort Myers Beach. She has no children.
Okay. All right. So tell me about your wife. What did she mean to you? You know, I know
she meant everything to me. I love her to this day. I'll go to my grave myself loving her. I miss her a lot, but there's nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
She had a bad health problem from the time that she was 13 years old. She was a drum majorette in a 4th of July parade.
Wow.
And a drunk driver came through a side street and hit her. And knocked her up in the air, and they put her in the hospital for over 3 months. And during that time, she was in a pelvic swing.
Mm.
Couldn't move until they had her pelvis completely healed.
Wow.
And she finally got out of that and went back and finished high school. And then when she was out of high school, she came down to Florida with some of her relatives, and that's when she went to work and I met her. We got married and had 3 children. I've got 2 daughters and a son, as I mentioned before. And they're doing very well.
Good. Very good. Now, you were telling me a little bit about fishing and golfing.
Yeah.
So
Well, you want to hear about my things that I do? Well, all that time that I was in the sales department with Continental, I really had a great time entertaining customers by flying them to Hudson Bay or down to Texas or down to Florida to play golf. And that became one of my real strong suits, was a great rapport with people and work in sales to promote whatever product I was selling. In high school, I played 2 years of football and 2 years of baseball and 1 year of basketball.
Okay.
I was working in my dad's restaurant during the war because there wasn't any other help, and it kind of messed up my continuity in the sports, so I kind of moved around all of them a little bit. Today, I don't think they entertain customers like I did. We had 3 jet airplanes, which were French Falcons, and 1 Gulfstream. And those were made and used primarily by the salespeople at Continental, and to go around and entertain customers.
That's awesome. So, you know, you're a businessman. You know, we're obviously a businessman for a long time. For somebody like me, you know, in my age, that probably wants to get involved in the business, or the people that are going to be watching this want to get involved in the business, you know, what would you, I guess, what's like probably one of the biggest advice you can give somebody going into a field like that? You know, how to be successful?
If you're interested in manufacturing, it's a little bit different than if you're going to try to get into the sales end of it. But the one thing you want to do, you want to pick a product that has to be homegrown, manufactured here to service the businesses in this country. It doesn't do any good to have you go to work for somebody that's out of the country, and they may take you out of the country. I think you want to stay in the United States.
Yeah.
Let me stop.
Yeah. I just apologize, guys. It's from my dog, but all right, you can go ahead and continue with that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Where was I here now?
Yeah, it was. You were talking about.
I would suggest, in talking about the products that you might use as a means to get a job in that industry, manufacturing something that has to be used in the United States. I think has more of a long-term life than somebody that goes with a company that is feeding products to India or China or the Arabs. You never know when that's going to dry up. So you try to stay homegrown if you could.
Right. Yeah. And you know, you obviously were married for a long time. You know, eventually, I think I would want to get married down the road. For someone that's been married that long, you know, what type of advice would you give them? Give a guy like me to keep a marriage strong like that for that long?
Well, I think, number one, it's very, very nice to have children. Mm-hmm. I think it was great. I could have had another child, but I was so busy, I just elected not to. But I could have had 1 or 2 more and been happy, I think. And I think that's the key to a successful marriage, is to have some children, and both of you work at bringing them up, educating them properly, and then going on with your lives.
Okay. Let's see what else I have. Who's some, like, you know, growing up, you grew up here in Cincinnati, you're probably very, I guess, proud of the city. do you like Cincinnati, or would
Well,
you?
I like Cincinnati
Would you prefer
a
to
whole
live?
lot.
Do you?
Yeah, I have moved around 9 times
Mm-hmm.
in my career with Continental.
Wow.
And that was a lot. It was a kind of a burden on the children at times with different schools, but they lived through it and they turned out real nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And stop it. I really don't think I have any more questions for you. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll give you a little bit of some of the things I think a young person like you should strive to attain.
okay.
And in my view of you, you've got a good dad and a good mother, and they're doing their very best to educate you properly, and I think you owe them something in return, and that is to walk the straight and narrow and keep your head up and stay out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Don't drink too much, and if you do drink, don't drive.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, thank you, George, for sitting down with me. And
If anybody would like to talk to me that's going to read this, have them give me a call. My phone number is 513-489-7395.
all right, sounds good. Thank you,
Okay.
George.
Sure.